Welcome to Miss Retro Reads. I'd like to read to you today the story of St. Michael the Archangel. It's found in the Golden Legend, Volume 2. Michael is interpreted as meaning, "who is like to God," and it is said that when something requiring wondrous power is to be done, Michael is sent, so that from his name and by his action it is given to be understood that no one can do what God alone can do. For that reason, many works of wondrous power are attributed to Michael. Thus, as Daniel testifies, in this time of the Antichrist, Michael will rise up and stand forth as defender and protector of the elect. He it was who fought with the dragon and his angels and expelled them from heaven. Winning a great victory, he fought with the devil over the body of Moses, because the devil wanted to keep the body hidden so that the Jewish people might adore Moses in place of the true God. Michael received the souls of the saints and led them into paradise of joy. In the past he was prince of the synagogue, but has now been established by the Lord as prince of the church. It is said that it was he who inflicted the plagues on the Egyptians, divided the Red Sea, led the people through the desert, and ushered them into the promised land. He is held to be Christ's standard-bearer among the battalions of the holy angels. At the Lord's command, he will kill the Antichrist with great power on Mount Olivet. At the sound of the voice of the Archangel Michael, the dead will rise, and it is he who will present the cross, the nails, the spear, the crown of thorns at the day of judgment. The sacred feast of Michael the Archangel celebrates his apparition, his victory, his dedication, and his memorial. There have been several apparitions of this angel. He first appeared at Mount Gargano in Apulia. There is a mountain named Gargano near the city called Sipantus. In the year of our Lord 390, there was in the aforesaid city of Sipantus a man named Garganus, who, according to the same book, took his name from the mountain, or from whom the mountain got its name. This man was rich and had sheep and cattle beyond counting. Once when the herd was grazing on the flanks of Mount Gargano, it happened that one bull separated himself from the rest and climbed to the top of the mountain. When the herd came in and this bull's absence was discovered, the landowners mustered a band of his people to track it up the mountain trail, and they finally found the animal standing in the mouth of a cave at the top. The owner, annoyed at the bull for having wandered off alone, aimed a poisonous arrow at it, but the arrow came back, as if turned about by the wind, and struck the one who had launched it. This dismayed the townsmen, and they went to the bishop and asked him what he thought of the strange occurrence. The bishop bound them to a 3-day fast and admonished them to direct their questions to God. They did, and St. Michael appeared to the bishop and said, "Know that it was by my will that the man was struck by his arrow. I am the Archangel Michael, and I have chosen to dwell in that place on earth and to keep it safe. I wished by the sign to indicate that I watch over the place and guard it." The bishop and the townspeople formed a procession and went to the cave, but not presuming to enter, stood around the entrance praying. The second apparition is described as having occurred about AD 710 at a place close to the sea called Tumba, about 6 miles from the city of Avranches. Michael appeared to the bishop of that city and ordered him to build a church at the aforesaid place, at which church, as at Mount Gargano, the memory of St. Michael the Archangel was to be celebrated. When the bishop was uncertain about the exact place where the church should be built, the Archangel instructed him to build at a spot where he would find that thieves had hidden a bull. The bishop also had doubts about how large the church should be, and was ordered to use as a measure the circuit marked by the bull's hoofprints. On the site there were two boulders, so massive that no human strength could move them. Then Michael appeared to a man and ordered him to go to the place and remove the rocks. The man went there and moved the stones so easily that they seemed to have no weight at all. When the church was built, they brought from Mount Gregano a cutting from the mantle St. Michael had spread over the altar there, and a slab of the marble on which he had stood, and placed them in his new church. And since there appeared to be a scarcity of water there, upon the angel's advice, they broke a cleft into a very hard rock at the site, and such a stream of water appeared out that even now it more than meets every need. This apparition is solemnly celebrated in that place on the 16th day of October. We are told that in this same place there occurred a miracle which is worthy of being remembered. The mountain on which St. Michael's Church was built is surrounded on all sides by the ocean, but twice on the saint's feast day a path is opened to allow the people to walk over. One such day, when a large throng was crossing to the church, it happened that a woman was pregnant, and close to her time went with them. Then the tide came in with a rush, and the crowd, terrified, made for the shore, but the pregnant woman could not move fast enough and was caught by the waves. The Archangel Michael, however, kept her unharmed, in such a way that she brought forth her son in the welter of the sea and nursed him there in her arms. Then the waters again opened a path for her, and she walked joyfully ashore with her child. We read that the third apparition took place in Rome during the reign of Pope Gregory. The Pope had instituted the Greater Litanies because of the plague which was raging in the city, and he was praying devoutly for the people when he saw above the castle, that in the past was called the tomb of Hadrian, an angel of the Lord who was wiping a bloody sword and returning it into its sheath. St. Gregory understood from this that his prayers were heard by the Lord, and he built a church there in honor of the angels. The castle is still called the Castle of the Holy Angel. This apparition is celebrated on the 8th of May, together with the apparition of Mount Gregano, when Michael gave victory to the people of Sipantus. The fourth apparition consists in the Hierarchies of the angels. The first hierarchy is called Epiphany, or higher apparition. The middle one is called Hyperphany, or middle apparition, and the lowest is called Hypophany, or lower apparition. The word hierarchy comes from hierer, sacred, and archos, prince, hence sacred prince. Each hierarchy includes 3 orders. The highest includes seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, and the middle one, as Dionysius assigns them, contains dominions, virtues, and powers, and the lowest, according to the same Dionysius, comprises of principalities, angels, and archangels. This ordering and ranking of the angels can be understood by its similarities with the organization of a royal court. Among the king's ministers, some, such as chamberlains, counselors, and assessors, work in immediate contact with him. The order in the first hierarchy are similar to these. Other officials have duties pertaining to the overall government of the kingdom, not to one particular province. Of this class are the commanders of the militia and the judges in the courts of law. They are similar to the orders in the second hierarchy. There are also minor officials, for instance, prefects, bailiffs, and the like, who are put in charge of particular parts of the kingdom. These are similar to the others of the lowest hierarchy. Among the angels, the 3 orders in the first hierarchy are those that are close to God, with no intermediary, and are wholly turned to him. For this relationship, 3 things are necessary. First, the highest love, and that is attributed to the seraphim, whose name means a fire with love. Second, perfect knowledge, which characterizes the cherubim, whose name means fullness of knowledge. Third, perpetual comprehension or enjoyment, which belongs to the thrones, and whose name means seats, because God sits in them and rests, as he grants them to rest in him. The three orders in the middle hierarchy are leaders and rulers over the universe of men as a whole. This rule has three elements. It consists first in presiding or commanding, and this belongs to the order of dominations, whose role it is to be at the head of those inferior to them, to direct them in all divine ministries, and to give them all necessary commands. As we read in Zechariah, one angel said to the other, "Run, say to that young man, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as villages without walls." The second element consists in the works to be done, and this applies to the order of virtues, for whom nothing that is commanded is impossible, because it is given to them to be able to rise above all difficulties encountered in the service of God. Therefore, the power to work miracles is attributed to them. The third element consists in getting rid of obstacles and resisting attacks, and this pertains to the order of powers, who are charged with driving off opposing powers, as we read in Tobit. The angel Raphael took the devil and bound him in the desert of Upper Egypt. The three orders of the lowest hierarchy are those whose sphere of influence is fixed and limited. Some of them have authority in only one province, and these are of the order of principalities or princes, like the prince of Persians, who ruled over Persia, about whom we read in the 10th chapter of Daniel. Some were commissioned to rule over a multitude of people, as for example over one city, and these are called archangels. Some had a single person placed in their charge, and these are called angels. Hence, angels are said to make minor announcements for the reason that their ministry is limited to one man, but archangels are said to announce great events because the good of a multitude is of greater importance than that of one individual. Gregory and Bernard agree that Dionysius, regarding the assigned functions of the orders of the first hierarchy, because the assignment of function corresponds to the fruit it produces, namely, ardent love for the seraphim, profound knowledge for the cherubim, and perpetual possession of God for the thrones. They appear to differ, however, regarding the assigned functions of two orders in the middle and lowest hierarchies, namely, of the principalities and powers. Gregory and Bernard are from the assumption that the status of master is awarded to the middle hierarchy of the ministry to the lowest. In this perspective, angels have mastery over three groups. Some are masters over angelic spirits, and these are called dominions. Some over good men, and these are called principalities, and some over demons, and these are called powers. There the order and levels of dignity are observed. Ministry also is of three kinds, namely, the performance of works, the teaching of great matter, and the teaching of less important ones. The first ministry belongs to the virtues, and the second to archangels, and the third to angels. There was a fifth apparition of the Archangel Michael, and we read about it in the tripartite history. Not far from Constantinople, there is a place where the goddess Vesta was worshipped in the past, but where now there stands a church built in honor of St. Michael, for which reason the place itself is called Michaelium. A man named Aquilinus was overtaken by a raging fever, known for the redness that accompanied it. The doctors gave him a potion to break the fever, but he vomited it, and continued to vomit whatever he ate or drank. Knowing that his death was near, he had himself carried to the place mentioned above, thinking that there he would either die or be relieved of his malady. Saint Michael appeared to him and told him to prepare a mixture of honey, wine, and pepper, and to dip everything he ate in that mixture, and he would be wholly cured. He did as directed, and was indeed made well, although it seems contrary to medical science to administer hot drinks to the feverish. This we read in the Tripartite history. Secondly, this feast is called Victory. Michael and his angels have won many victories. The first is the one that the Archangel Michael bestowed on the people of Sipontus in the following way. Some time after the finding of the cave at the top of Mount Gargano, the Neapolitans, who were still pagans, organized an army and began to make war on the people of Sipontus and Benventum, a town some 50 miles from Sipontus. The bishop advised these people to seek a 3-day truce, which would give them time to fast and to pray to their patron Michael for help. On the third night, Michael appeared to the bishop and told him that the prayers had been heard, promised him victory, and ordered that the enemy be met at the 4th hour of daylight. As the battle was joined, Mount Gargano was shaken by a violent earthquake. Lightning flashed uninterruptedly, and a dark cloud blackened the whole peak of the mountain. 600 of the enemy troops fell before the sword of the defenders and the fiery lightning flashes. The rest recognized the power of the Archangel, abandoned the error of idolatry, and bent their necks to the yoke of the Christian faith. The second victory was won by the Archangel Michael when he drove the dragon, Lucifer, and all his followers out of heaven, a battle about which the book of Revelations tells us. There was a great battle in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon fought with his angels, and they prevailed not. For when Lucifer wanted to be equal to God, the Archangel Michael, standard-bearer of the celestial host, marched up and expelled Lucifer and his followers out of heaven, and shut them up in this dark air until the day of judgment. They are not allowed to live in heaven or in the upper part of the air, because that is a bright and pleasant place, nor on the earth with us, lest they do us too much harm. They are in the air between heaven and earth, so that when they look up and see the glory they have lost, they grieve for it. And when they look down and see men ascending to the place from which they fell, they are often tormented with envy. However, by God's design, they come down upon us to test us, and, as has been shown to some holy men, they fly around us like flies. They are innumerable, and like flies they fill the whole air. Hence, Haman says, as philosophers have said, and as our doctors agree, the air is as full of demons and wicked spirits as a ray of sunshine with specks of dust. Still, innumerable as they are, Origen is of the opinion that their numbers lessen when we conquer them, with the result that when one of them is defeated by a holy man, the tempter can no longer tempt the man to fall into the vice into which he had failed to draw him. The third victory is the one that the angels win over the demons every day, when they fight for us and save us from the demons' effort to tempt us. The angels do this in 3 ways. First, by curbing the power that belongs to the demons. The book of Revelations tells us about the angel who bound the demon and cast him into the bottomless pit. And in Tobit, we read about the angel who bound a demon in the desert of Upper Egypt. This binding is nothing less than the curbing of the demon's power. The second way is by cooling concupiscence. This is what is meant by the passage in Genesis, which says that an angel touched the sinew of Jacob's thigh, and it shrank. The third way is by impressing on our minds the memory of the Lord's passion. There is what Revelation means, where we read, "Do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God upon their foreheads. And in Ezekiel we read, Mark tau upon the foreheads of men that sigh. Tau is the Greek letter that is written in the shape of a cross, and those who are marked with this sign have no fear of the avenging angel. Hence we read in the same place, Upon whomsoever you shall see the sign tau, kill them not. The fourth victory is the one that Michael the Archangel is to win over the Antichrist when he kills him. Then Michael, the great prince, as Daniel calls him, will rise and stand forth a valorous aid and protector against the Antichrist. The Antichrist, as the gloss says on the text in Revelations, I saw one of his heads as it were slain to death, will pretend to be dead and will hide for 3 days, and then will appear and say that he is resurrected, and with demons carrying him by their magical arts, will rise in the air, and all will be amazed and will adore him. Finally, he will go to the top of Mount Olivet, according to the gloss on the words in 2 Thessalonians. And then that wicked one shall be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus shall kill. He will sit in his tent and on his throne, and at that place from which the Lord ascended. And Michael will come and slay him. This fight and this victory are understood according to Gregory as referring to the text in Revelation mentioned above. There was a great battle in heaven, etc. And what is said about Michael's threefold battle is understood as referring inclusively to the fight he had with Lucifer when he expelled him from heaven, and the one with the demons to keep them from doing us too much harm on earth, and the one we are talking about here, the battle with the Antichrist at the end of the world. Thirdly, this feast is called dedication, due to the fact that on this day the Archangel Michael revealed that he himself had dedicated the place on Mount Gargano, already described. When the people of Sympantus came back after defeating their enemies and achieving such a magnificent victory, they began to have doubts about whether they should dedicate the cave or even enter it. The bishop therefore consulted Pope Pelagius about this, and the Pope answered, If indeed it behooves men to dedicate that church, it should be done on that date, the day on which victory was granted us. If, on the other hand, it would please Michael to have something else done, he is the one to tell us what his will is in the matter. The Pope, the bishop, the people joined in a 3-day fast, and on this very day Michael appeared to the bishop and said, There is no need for you to dedicate this church, because I myself found it, built it, and dedicated it. He ordered the bishop to enter the church with the people on the following day. There they were to pray to Michael and acknowledge him as their special patron. Michael told the bishop that for all to have a sign of the consecration he had spoken of, they should come up from the east side and through a rear entrance, and there they would find the mark of a man's footsteps imprinted in the marble. So the next day the bishop and the entire populace climbed to the place and went inside. They found themselves in a vast cavern in which 2 altars stood on the south side and one in the east. This last altar was of imposing dimensions and was covered all round with a red mantle. Mass was then celebrated, and after receiving Holy Communion, the people went their several ways, rejoicing. The bishop appointed priests and clerics to celebrate the divine office there continually. In this same cave a clear, sweet water flowed. The people drank it after communion and were cured of whatever disease they had. When the Pope was informed of these events, he decreed that this day should be celebrated throughout the world in honor of St. Michael and all the blessed spirits. Fourthly, this feast is called a Commemoration of St. Michael. By it, however, we commemorate all the angels and honor all of them together. There are many reasons for our honoring and praising the angels. They are our guardians, our servants, our brothers, and our fellow citizens. They carry our souls into heaven. They present our prayers before God, and they are the noble soldiers of the eternal King and the consolers of the afflicted. First, then, we owe them honor because they are our guardians. To every man 2 angels are given, one good and the other bad, the bad one to test him, and the good one to protect him. After being born, but before adulthood, it may not be possible for him to be baptized, and as an adult he can be drawn to a variety of sins. The devil deceives the mind by false reasoning, enticing the will by seduction, and overpowers virtue by violence. Therefore, it was necessary that a good angel be deputed to each man as guardian, to instruct and direct him against falsehood, to exhort and incite him to good, and defend him against. Take courage and be strong. They preserve us from impatience. He will give his angels charge over you, to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Third, they cool and allay afflictions, and this is typified in Daniel, when the angel of the Lord descended to the 3 young men in the fiery furnace, and in the middle of the furnace it was as if a breeze were blowing. The end. I hope you enjoyed these facts about St. Michael. I didn't know all of them, but I had heard certain stories about St. Michael. I think my favorite story about him was when they had a plague and he was seen by the Pope sheathing his sword, wiping it off from all the blood that he had basically rid their town of the plague. Super cool. So I will recite for you the St. Michael prayer so that if you don't know it or if you've forgotten it, you can learn it again because it's a very important prayer and very powerful. Here goes. Saint Michael, the Archangel, defend us in the battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. And don't forget to pray to your guardian angel. He's out there looking for you, and one day when you get to heaven, you can thank him for all of his help. And thanks for listening to Miss Retro Reads.